I'm Richard Chambers, President and CEO of the Global Institute of Internal Auditors. Many people are understandably alarmed by continued reports of cyber attacks around the world. To the casual observer, it may seem like major businesses and government institutions are wholly unprepared to address this growing threat. The reality is that many businesses and governments have been identifying and planning for such risks for decades in a process known as enterprise risk management. Indeed, one of the keys to building a robust and resilient economy is for companies and government institutions to identify, understand, and take steps to mitigate risks that threaten us. Enterprise risk management and risk-based approaches by internal auditors provide effective processes to accomplish this. During my 40 years in the internal audit profession, I have had many opportunities to apply the risk-based auditing process at both public and private organizations. In every instance, I was able to see the clear benefits that this approach provides. Why does it work so well? Because it raises the internal audit function from simply providing assurance on compliance issues to actually understanding key risks and how they impact an organization. What's more, it offers the organization an effective process to develop a clear picture of how different areas of the organization interact and influence each other. The risk-based auditing approach can be broken down into three key components. First, it considers departmental objectives and operations. Second, it identifies risks in achieving those objectives. Finally, it suggests remedies to mitigate those risks. But that is just the start of effective risk-based internal auditing. The key objective is to make sure that an internal audit function's objectives and priorities align with those of management. In any discussion about risk-based auditing, it's important to understand the roles and responsibilities of each stakeholder involved in the process. At the IIA, we've adopted the 3 lines of defense model to clearly delineate those roles. The first line of defense comprises operational managers who ultimately are responsible for and manage risk. The second line of defense involves those who oversee risks such as risk management and compliance functions. Internal audit operates as the third line of defense by providing independent assurance on the effectiveness of governance, risk management, and controls. Having a clear understanding of these roles and responsibilities will make it easier to identify and assess risks, prioritize which risks should be addressed, and ultimately have internal audit provide assurance to management on how each risk is addressed and mitigated. I would be remiss if I did not mention that every organization must develop a key understanding of how new technologies and the increasingly global nature of the economic markets are accelerating the speed with which new risks can develop and threaten organizations. Good internal audit functions must have built-in mechanisms to constantly assess those risks. This is something that I call auditing at the speed of risk. Good internal audit plans consider whether risks are internal or external, financial, operational, strategic, or involve technology or regulations. It also assesses whether they are related to the reputation of an organization. The danger is adopting a plan at the start of a year and rigidly sticking to it. Audit plans and coverage should constantly evolve as new potential risks surface and undergo assessment. Such an approach adds significant value for internal audit stakeholders, particularly during sudden or unexpected crises. One way to continuously monitor risk is to identify key risk indicators at the outset of the year and monitor them periodically or continuously throughout the year. These key risk indicators can be linked to the results of the annual risk assessment or to risks that are known to be volatile or emerging. When anomalies appear, internal audit should assess whether the organization's risks are shifting, and if warranted, internal audit's coverage should be adapted accordingly. Another way to keep your risk assessment and audit plan up to date is what I like to call risk assessment by walking around. This method is exactly as the phrase implies and relies on developing strong working relationship with key members of the senior management team. This way you become aware of new risks as soon as they do. A third approach is simply to set your antenna as high as possible to detect industry-wide changes, economic trends, and other external factors. Industry publications, seminars, and professional association meetings can be valuable sources for acquiring crucial intelligence that might impact your risk assessment. I hope this provides some insight into how many businesses and governments address risk. Remaining vigilant to change and risk remains one of the top priorities for good corporate governance and the internal audit function. From the global headquarters of the Institute of Internal Auditors, I'm Richard Chambers, President and CEO.